In this video I'm going to look at different types of averages. First of all, there's two different ways that these questions can be asked. You can either just be asked the average from just a list of numbers, or sometimes they ask you for an average from a frequency table or a group frequency table. So for the first bit of the video I'm just going to look at the averages just from a list of numbers. So there are a few different types of averages. There's the mean, the median and the mode, and the range technically isn't actually a type of average, but it's thrown in with these other words. So the mean is whenever you add them all up and divide by how many there are. The median is whenever you put them in order and get the one in the middle. And the mode is the most popular number or the most common number or the one that comes up the most, and it's also called the modal number. And then the range is just the biggest take away the smallest. So normally if you're asked to find the average, say in science or something like that, the average that they're talking about would be the mean. And if I was wanting to find the class average for a set of tests or something like that, I would add up all of the test results and divide by 20 pupils or 24 pupils, depending on whatever amount of pupils are in the class. So the average, the mean, is the one that most people would use in everyday life to mean the average. These other two, the median and the mode, are also types of averages, but they're just not used as much. So, question 1. Here are the marks that 10 students got in a science test. So there's 10 different marks there, and we're wanting to find the mean. So the mean is where you add them all up and divide by how many there are. So first of all, on my calculator then, I am going to add up 8, 7, 3, 2, 7, 9, 6, 10, 8, 8. So 68. Hopefully I haven't made any mistakes there. I'll check back over. Back to start. 873, 279, 610, 88. So that's okay. So the total up to 68. And then you divide that by the amount of numbers, the amount of scores. So divide that by 10 would get you 6.8. So the mean is 6.8. The mean mark, the average mark would be 6.8. Then another type of average that you could find would be the median. So that would be the mark that the middle person got. So you need to put them in order first. So 2, 3. Then there's no 4s, no 5s. There's a 6. There's a 7 and a 7. There's an 8, 8, 8. And then a 9 and then a 10. So I would advise you to do as I did there, stroke them out as you go along to make sure you actually use them all. So the median mark then would be the person in the middle. So go along and take one from each end, and then another one, and another one, and another one, until you get either 1 in the middle, or in this case there ended up being 2 in the middle. So there's 4 numbers at the start and 4 numbers at the end. So 2 numbers in the middle. For you to get the median, then you go halfway in between those. So between 7 and 8 would be 7.5. If I had got to a stage here where there was 7 there and 7 there, between 7 and 7 your median would just be 7. And if it was 8 and 8, then the median between 8 and 8 would just be 8. Okay, so this time between 7 and 8, the number in the middle there is 7.5. So that would be your median average. What is the mode? So the mode is just the number that came up the most. So you can probably see it better from this list of numbers actually. The number that I wrote out the most times was 8, 8, 8. So mode, the most popular mark, is 8. Then the range is just the biggest, take away the smallest. So 10, take away 2, would get you a range of 8. So the range is just really how all the marks are spread out. So I would use this with your test results to see, was there a massive difference between the person who came first and the person who came last. Okay, these ones here are all types of averages. The range, as I said, isn't really a type of average. And the one there that's normally the most useful would be the mean, because it takes into consideration all of the numbers, they're all being added up. Whereas the median is just what the middle person got. So you could have got somebody who did really badly or somebody who did really well, and they'd kind of be ignored. And the mode, again, for the same sort of reason, you're just looking for the mark that most people got, so you're ignoring the person who did the best and the person who did the worst. Whereas the mean, at least all of the numbers are being used. So it's normally the best type of average, which is why most other subjects would use it. Number 2 then, just a problem question to do with averages. So write down 4 different numbers with a median and a mean of 5. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different numbers. And I want the median and the mean to both be 5. So for the median to be 5, that means that in the middle between those two would be 5. And it has to be different numbers, so I can't use 5 and 5. I would have to use something like 4 and 6 would have 5 in the middle, or 3 and 7 would have 5 in the middle. So that's the median sorted. I've got 5 in the middle. For the mean to be 5, that means whenever these have been added up and divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, the answer that they're getting is 5. So if you do 5 times 4 then, that tells you that these numbers must total up to 20. So I've already got 4 and 6, that's already 10. So these other 2 numbers here must also add up to 10. So I could have 3 and 7, or 2 and 8, or 1 and 9, or 0 and 10. I'm going to go for 2 and 8. So you can check median 5. Yes, you've got 5 in the middle there. You would go in, and you've got 4 and 6 go in the middle is 5. And the mean, just check that you actually get 5 for that. So add those up. 6 and 4 is 10, 8 and 2 is 10, 10 and 10 is 20, and 20 divided by 1, 2, 3, 4 would get you a mean of 5. Okay, what I want to look at now are averages from a frequency table. So those were just averages just from a list of numbers. So if you're asked for the average and the information is given to you in a frequency table, like this, they don't necessarily have to have the word frequency in there. They might just have number of people or something like that. So again, you're looking at the different types of averages. If you're wanting to find the mean, you use MAD, multiply, add, divide. If there are groups, then you find the midpoint first and use MAD, and you never add up the midpoints, you add up the frequencies and the totals. Then the mode is the group with the highest frequency, and the median is probably the most awkward one to find out of this. You would have to add up the frequency to see how many people there are, and then half it to see where the middle person is, and then you'd actually have to go up your table to find where the middle person is, and then what mark they got or how many goals they scored or whatever, depending on the question. And then the range is just the biggest take away the smallest again. So I've got an example here. So Chloe records the number of goals scored by her favourite football team in each of 40 matches. So there's the number of goals, so nobody scored more than 5 goals, or they didn't score more than 5 goals in a match. And then the frequency here would be the number of matches. So first of all, we are wanting to calculate the mean number of goals scored per match. So the mean would be where you add them all up and divide by how many there are. But you don't just add those up and divide by 6. You need to think of what these numbers actually mean. So that 7 means that there were 7 matches where they didn't score any goals. So if you take it one bit at a time in the table, so 7 matches, no goals at all in any of the 7 matches would be a total of no matches. Then the next bit in the table, 15 matches, and they scored 1 goal per match. So that would be 15 goals altogether. The next bit then, there were 13 matches where they scored 2 goals in each match. So that would be a total of 26 goals. Then 2 matches where they scored 3 goals. So 3 goals in one match, 3 goals in the next match. That's a total of 6. Then there were 2 matches when they scored 4 goals. So 4 goals and another 4 would be 8. And then 1 match where they scored 5 goals. So that would be 5 goals altogether. So what you're actually doing there is multiplying. 0 times 7 gets you 0, 1 times 1 times 15 gets you 15, and so on. So that's where this word MAD comes from, because the first thing you do is multiply, and that's to get your totals. After that then you add, and you add up all of these totals, because that will tell you how many goals there were scored all together in the 40 matches. So we would be adding up 0 plus 15 plus 26 plus 6 plus 8 plus 5 totals up to 60. So there were 60 goals scored in the 40 matches, and the reason you know there were 40 matches, apart from the fact that it tells you in the question, is that that's what these frequencies total up to. So they scored 60 goals altogether from playing 40 matches. So for you to get your mean or your average, it would be the total amount of goals divided by the total amount of matches. So 60 divided by 40. So the last step then is divide. So 60 divided by 40, so go to your calculator, 60 divided by 40 gets you 1.5. So the average number of goals scored per match would be 1.5. I know that you can't actually score 1.5 goals, it would have to be 1 goal or 2 goals. But I would just leave that as it is because it's more accurate. So when you're asked to find the mean from a frequency table, learn that you do MAD. Multiply going across, add up your total and your frequency, and then divide one by the other. Part B, write down the mode of the number of goals scored. So they want you to work out what's the most popular amount of goals in any of the matches. So if you look up through the frequency, 15 is the biggest frequency, so that means 1 goal was the most popular number of goals scored in the matches. So your mode is just 1 because it has the biggest frequency. Then work out the median number of goals scored. So the median would be whenever you put them in order and get the one in the middle. These are already in order in the table here, but they're just a bit difficult to work with. But if you look at the total of the frequency, that 40 means that there were 40 people, well, 40 matches, football matches, all written out in order, and we're wanting to find which one was in the middle. So if there were 40 matches, the middle would roughly be where the 20th one is. So it would actually be between the 20th and the 21st, but normally they have the 20th one and the 21st one falling in the same group here anyway. So if you count up them, so if you do 40 divided by 2 gets you 20, although it should really be between 20th and 21st. So we need to find where the 20th match is to see whether it had no goals, 1 goal, 2 goals, 3 goals, 4 goals, 5 goals. So there were 7 matches where there were no goals. So that means that if you were to write these out in a list, you would have 7 times. So the first 4 numbers would be 7. Then the next 15 numbers would all be 1. So you would have, I think I said the first 7 numbers would all be 7. I can't remember what it said there. The first 7 numbers would all be noughts. So you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then you would have 15 ones. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And because there's 40 matches, the middle one would be match number 20. So we've already found the 20th one there. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So that was the 20th match there. There was 1 goal scored in the 20th match whenever they were put in order. Okay, what you don't do to get the median is go like this in the table and get that the median is 2.5 goals. You need to really think here what the frequency is all about, and if need be, write yourself out the list. If you really needed to there, you could write out all the 2s, 3s, 4s and 5s as well. It wouldn't take you that long, and then at least you'd definitely be sure of getting the right answer. So 1 is your median. The last one then, what is the range in the number of goals scored? So we're just wanting to work out about the variety in the range of goals. What was the most that they scored? What was the least that they scored? So in one match, they scored 5 goals. So 5 would be the biggest. And then there were a few matches where they didn't score any goals at all. So 5 take away 0 would get you a range of 5. So the variety in the number of goals was 5. So mean, you do MAD. Mode, look for the one with the biggest frequency. Median, half the frequency, and then count up through the frequency to see what group it falls in here. And then the range is just the biggest take away the smallest in the first bit of the table. Okay, so that's just an ordinary frequency table. You can get grouped frequency tables, and they're just where the first bit of the table, it's not just an individual number. So if we look back at the last table again there, the first bit in the table was just number of goals, it was just a single number. Whereas this table that we're looking at, it's a grouped frequency table because they've grouped the numbers. So this question, Jane records the times taken by 30 pupils to complete a number puzzle. So there were 3 pupils who completed it within 2 and 4 minutes. Then there were 6 pupils that completed it between 4 and 6, 7 between 6 and 8, 8 between 8 and 10, 5 between 10 and 12, and then there was 1 person who took between 12 and 14 minutes to complete it. Calculate an estimate of the mean time taken to complete the puzzle. First of all, this is an estimate because you don't actually know how long each person took because they've grouped the results. So these 3 people, they might have all taken 4 minutes or they might have taken 3. You're not sure what way it worked out because they've grouped them. So for you to get the mean, you do MAD, multiply, add, divide. So first of all, before you can multiply, you need to work out what numbers you're actually going to multiply together. So you take it that these 3 people, because you don't know whether they took 2, 3 or 4 minutes, you just assume that they took the average time here, so that would be the time in the middle. So between 2 and 4, the midpoint there would be 3. So you assume that they took the middle amount of time. So then 3 people taking 3 minutes each would be a total of 9 minutes. Then these 6 people, you assume that they took the halfway point between 4 and 6, which would be 5. So you assume that they took 30 minutes altogether to complete the puzzle. These 7 people took between 6 and 8, so the midpoint there would be 7. So you assume that they took 49 minutes altogether. These 8 people took between 8 and 10, so that would be 9 minutes, 8, 9, 72. These 5 people took between 10 and 12, so you assume that they took about 11 minutes, 5 11s are 55. And then just 1 person at the end, and you just assume that they took 13 minutes. So a total of 13 then. So this is you working out the total amount of time that all of these 30 pupils took to complete the test. So what you need to do then, since you just found the total of each group, is find the total of all of those totals. So I'm going to go to the calculator again. So add up 9, 30, 49, 72, 55 and 13. So that totals up to 228. So the total amount of time taken by all 30 pupils to complete the puzzle was 228 minutes. And then for you to get your mean or your average, you would have to divide that by how many people. Again, they told you in the question it was 30, but if they didn't tell you that, you would need to go here and add up the number of pupils or the frequency. So 228 divided by 30 gets you 7.6 minutes. And you don't need to try to turn that into minutes and seconds or anything unless they specifically ask you to, but they didn't here, so I'm just leaving it as 7.6. Okay, so whenever you're finding the mean from a grouped frequency table, instead of you just having a column labelled total, you have another one thrown in here for the midpoint. So if you like, there's kind of an M at the start of the MAD, so 2 M's first, do the midpoint and then multiply, add, divide. The next bit of the question, write down the modal class interval. So class interval is just the fancy word for groups. So the modal class interval means which one of these groups was the most popular one. So which one had the biggest frequency or the most amount of pupils. So go to the pupils. The most amount of pupils was 8 and it was in this group here, the 8 to 10 group. So you would just write down that the modal class interval was the 8 to 10 group. Part C, work out the group that the median time lies within. So the median time would be the time in the middle. So you would take the 30 people and divide it by 2 to get that the middle person would be person number 15, although it would actually be between the 15th and 16th, but we don't need to worry about that until we actually go to count up on the table. So this 3 means 3 people scoring between 2 and 4, and we're looking for person number 15. So that's 3 people, plus another 6 people would be 9 people, and then another 7 people would bring us up to the 16th person. So the 15th and 16th people must be in this group here then. So this 3, that would be like your first, second and third person. Then this 6 would be your 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th person. Then this would be your 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th and 16th person then in that group. And we were looking for between the 15th and 16th person, so that would be the 6 to 8 group. So your median is the 6 to 8 group. Again, to get your median, you don't just go like that, because then it would end up being in between those 2 groups. So take the number of people, cut it in half, and then count up through your frequency to see what group that person would lie in. Part D, what is the range of time taken? So the groups went from 2 minutes up to 14 minutes. So your time varied from some people getting as low as 2 and some people getting as high as 14. So your range would be 14, take away 2, and there was a range of 12 minutes then between the person who did it the quickest and the person who did it the slowest. Okay, that's the end of that video on averages.